More like Taxachufits.
Taxes. One of only two certainties in life, except in the future where instead of paying your taxes you can always spend a weekend with the pain monster instead.
See ya April 15th, folks!
But don't worry, we're not talking about taxes, that would be awful. Let's talk about death. Because in the future, like taxes, death seems optional.
To shreds, you say?
Sort of. I'm not saying that no one dies in the future, but thanks to advanced medicine, there's a lot less of it going around in the 31st century. This might sound like a good thing on the surface, like not having to pay your taxes, but this healthcare system has a pain monster of its own, and I'm not talking about the human batteries or the euthanasia stations on every city block, dark as those things may be.
But I couldn't go on living once I found out what the girders were for.
What?
Suicide boots.
My question is, if medicine does finally manage to defeat death, who gets to use that technology? Who doesn't? And most importantly, who gets to make that choice? But before I accuse the future power structure of leveraging an otherwise positive system for their imperialistic goals, we need to take a look at that system, what it does, and how it works. There isn't a direct explanation for this structure in the show because that would be a ridiculous expectation to have for a comedy television program. We do, however, get bits and pieces of the larger infrastructure through episodes that deal with injury and disease.
An unknown pathogen has been detected on these premises.
Cold Warriors and Rage Against the Vaccine give us glimpses into the future's advances in epidemiology. In the former, the CDC detects an unknown pathogen almost immediately and takes the quarantine very seriously.
You are hereby quarantined until such time as it is deemed safe to enter and shoot your asses.
It does break containment, of course, but their backup plan is to literally shoot Manhattan into the sun, so like I said, a very serious response.
Go on now.
But I'm talking about the larger system, the one that includes the Near Death Star, the Future Crimes Division, and suicide booths. These are, on their own, simply jokes and parodies of sci-fi tropes, but when considered together with the advances in medical science, they make up the four pillars of a largely post-death society. If technology has progressed to the point where disease has nearly been eradicated, and bodies can be healed after horrible accidents,
that's it over there.
How are people gonna die? They aren't going to be murdered, the Future Crimes Division has a homicide unit, and you aren't even gonna die of old age because when you hit 160, you'll be retired by the Sunset Squad. If all of these systems are working properly, a suicide booth would truly be the only way for a life to end in the future. At least, that's how it's supposed to work in theory. It's hard to assume all of these systems are working properly when one of the most important parts involves the poster boy of incompetence himself, Dr.
John Zoidberg.
So this is where we're going to dig in. Of the four pillars, medical technology is certainly the one we have the most access to. Meds in the future are wildly effective, so much so that despite his incompetence, Zoidberg is still a doctor.
A doctor, honey.
A bad doctor? Absolutely. His name is used as a pejorative amongst others in his field.
He must have been a total Zoidberg.
But that kind of suggests that there are other incompetent doctors like him. Either way, the point is the technology is likely doing most of the heavy lifting in Zoidberg's so-called doctoring. Because in spite of his incompetence, he's managed to keep the current Planet Express crew alive for decades. This includes multiple head transplants, limb reattachments, and a full-on Dr. Frankenstein level reassembly of Hermes. And he does this all with a very limited knowledge of human anatomy.
You don't know anything about human anatomy.
I learned it from a decongestant commercial.
So limited, he can't even tell a human from a robot.
I thought you were the robot.
Yet despite this, the closest we come to see Zoidberg actually losing people under his direct care is on Triton.
I hope the men have been taking their hypermalaria pills.
We don't technically see them die, so they could have gone on to make full recoveries and marry
supermodels.
But in the much more likely event that they all did die, those mercenaries are the only patients we actually see Zoidberg lose. He's pronounced plenty of people dead, sure, but if they die before they're in his care, it's kind of out of his claws. Of course, this doesn't mean he hasn't lost patients. He's definitely claimed to have lost a few.
I bet I've lost more patients than he's even treated.
But we can't actually take his word on that, because he has incorrectly pronounced people dead multiple times.
I'm afraid he's gone.
Whoa, Doc, I ain't dead.
Excuse me, I believe I'm the doctor.
And all of this really does make sense when you remember that Dr. Zoidberg isn't a medical doctor at all.
My doctorate is in art history.
which suggests that medical technology in the future is so idiot-proof that they'll give anyone with any kind of doctorate some sort of medical license. I don't know how many or what kind of doctorates Farnsworth has, but I don't think he's an MD. However, that doesn't stop him from possessing this giant vat of stem cells.
Harvested from perfectly healthy adults whom I killed for their stem cells.
Again, really don't think he's an MD, unless they got rid of the Hippocratic Oath at some point, which is actually a distinct possibility.
What bomb?
The one we had the doctors implant in that gullible bender robot.
Look, I'm not a rules scientist. I think that might actually just be a lawyer, and I'm not one of those either. But taking a planet-destroying bomb and sticking it into somebody
With glue or something, I don't know.
seems contrary to the whole do no harm idea. That's some Joker in the Dark Knight type shit. And I know he was dressed as a nurse in that one scene, but turns out nurses don't take the Hippocratic Oath, which is why Nurse Ratched can stuff you in a box with an exploding robot. Nurses can explode you. What? Is, I guess, what I'm saying, which I wouldn't use as a legal defense. Again, not a rules scientist.
It's plumb hard pleading a case while awaiting trial for that incompetence.
Which is fine, because we aren't really concerned with the regulations of the medical industry. Farnsworth certainly doesn't care about that. We're focusing on what this stuff is capable of, and it's basically fucking magic. Farnsworth uses his vat to revive multiple people who have been reduced down to a head and skeletal system. And while these should be fatal injuries, the head of Zap does still seem to be alive.
Over my dead body.
So we shouldn't just assume everyone is dead. This would also fit in well with the larger trend we see of characters surviving when their head remains intact. Fry and Hermes both have their heads reattached to repaired bodies after they were initially destroyed. Fry lost consciousness, but neither he nor Hermes actually died.
Don't worry, I managed to keep your head alive with some quick surgery.
And while this might be the case for the people behind the horror cloth, seeing as they still have heads, we certainly can't say the same for the tuft of hair and pile of dust that Fry has been reduced to in the crash. Our traditional definition of dead is useless in this context. You can't get more dead than Fry is on that tray, and yet
I'm not dead. What?
maybe we need to stop looking at who almost dies and focus on the ones that do, as well as how and why they do. The first part would have been easy, but I just rejected the traditional definition of death, so there will be some caveats. Either way, these are the people who appear to die in Futurama, minus anthologies, of course. This list includes a minimum of 9 full planets, plus an additional N planets undefined by Zoidberg's narration of
Many planets.
In Love and Rocket. Obviously, planetary destruction is well outside the preventative capabilities of the system we're trying to define. So while they are technically deaths, they're not really relevant to Earth's end-of-life care. We can add a few more of these to that same category. For example, Bender's body isn't a planet, but it has experienced an extinction-level event.
We shall be with you soon.
You with me now? This is the maximum level of being with me.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be apocalyptic for this exception. Medical technology is still the key ingredient here, and the ability to render that aid is ultimately what we're looking at. A Planet Express crew eaten by a 4D space whale or lost inside a hive of deadly space bees is far away from said aid, which might explain their deaths. That and the fact that the professor intentionally sends his crew to their doom because the professor is a monster. But his ability to do that to his crew shows the reach of this system isn't infinite and might be subject to available resources. A place like
Bombay Alpha
might simply be too remote for Helmig Spargle to receive proper medical care after his stomach explodes.
Helmut Spargle has a message for you. He says, "Ooh, I'm dead."
But I bet if you get that guy to Taco Bellevue Hospital, he'd have been fine. Though he'd probably rather die than step foot in a Taco Bell of any kind.
The dark side of cooking. Cilantro. Mango salsa.
Similar remote areas like malfunctioning lighthouses are likely to see some casualties. This also includes planets with inferior technology like Osiris-4, and can even be the case in some regions on Earth, where all power is being diverted to mining operations, for example. Really, wherever doctors can't properly access injured people in time, there might be some deaths.
The Indy 500 was today. There were no survivors.
Drunk doctors aren't going to be much help at the inebriated 500, just like dumb doctors aren't going to be much help during a series of train crashes in New Jersey. Also, some of these people probably exploded. And I don't know if people can be repaired after they explode.
Stop exploding, you cowards!
Except maybe these three, but I'm pretty sure their cause of death was
Crushed pelvises.
Same goes for if you were eaten, I suppose, which explains Free Waterfall Jr. and Sr. But what about the other waterfalls?
I shall avenge you, Hutch. Waterfall.
Hutch is bitten by the Dark One, but he isn't eaten. Regardless, they just kinda leave him there based on a space monster's declaration of vengeance and carry about their business. Hutch should be very savable here. I mean, at the very least, they could bring him back as a zombie like they did with Scruffy.
Life and death are a seamless continuum.
And the same goes for Frida, who is remotely force-choked by the Dark One. It's unclear, but again, we have another fully intact body. If somebody found her in time, you'd think they'd be able to revive her, though to be fair, it's not as cut and dry as the Hutch case, where there's a doctor standing next to Hutch's body for Fry's sake. Now, it's possible that the Dark One has some stupid magic ability to kill in a unique way beyond the future's medicine, so let's take that variable out entirely and go back to when Frida Waterfall was originally introduced.
Another victim of the manocentric maleocracy!
Her great-grandpa, Old Man Waterfall, was crushed to death by the Oppression Palace.
Ah, my spirit!
At least it appears that way. Zoidberg thinks he's dead, but we know his track record there isn't great. Frida claims he's dead, but at the very least, his head was still alive at that point.
I request a satanic funeral!
Which even lines up with our initial rule of if the head survives, you can survive if the body is repaired. Old Man Waterfall is, presumably, one of the most repairable people on Earth, seeing as the majority of his parts are already replacement parts anyway.
You see this hand of mine?
Yes, I do.
No, you don't!
But he's just left to die. No one makes an attempt to save Old Man, or any of his kin. And the question is that intentional? We already see a lot of deaths that are simply ignored because it's more convenient for everyone. You can call them time duplicates all you want, but it doesn't change the fact that people are dying, and no one tries to help them with the basically magical future medicine. Don't get me wrong, I understand why they don't bother, especially in Bender's Big Score where time duplicates are doomed, but it's worth pointing out that these time duplicates can go on to have their own full, rich lives, as we saw with Lars. Because the time duplicates in the late Philip J. Fry are not inherently doomed like the ones made by the paradox correcting time code. So these versions of the Professor, Fry, and Bender could have gone on to live full separate lives like Lars if they were revived. I mean, they give this grace to robot duplicates.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was already here.
But not time duplicates. It seems arbitrary, but it does fit in with this larger trend of just letting someone stay dead when it's easier for everyone that way.
He's dead.
I don't know if you can cure bonitis after the patient dies, but no one even tries. They just leave him there and carry on with what they're doing, pretty much the same thing they did with Hutch. Now, all of these examples involve the Planet Express crew directly, and their moral compass is a bit off.
Want to steal some more stuff?
I guess, as long as you think it's right.
But I also think we see a similar attitude in society at large. Earth collectively flipped the switch on the trolley problem twice, offering up President McNeil and later Leela to the Omicronians. I'm not trying to get caught up in a trolley problem debate though. The answer is pretty obvious. You jam the switch so it derails. This allows the trolley to land on both rails in a dope grind, killing all 6 people, and probably the trolley occupants as well.
I'm Bender, king of the combination shot.
I'm much more interested in the fact that McNeil wasn't the right guy, but they just let him stay dead anyway. He's a pile of dust, sure, but so was Fry when he went into the stem cells. Are you telling me they can't get stem cells for the president of Earth? Or is it simply they don't want to get stem cells for the president because he sucks and they're all better off now that he's a pile of dust? I know that's hard to imagine.
Anyone who laughs is a communist.
None of this is conclusive, of course, but there's a curious lack of consistency in who gets medical aid. And it appears to correlate with how well the person is liked by those around them?
He sure was stupid.
It doesn't seem to be an established rule or anything like that, but this lack of enforcement is seen throughout the larger healthcare system. The Sunset Squad, for example, either has poor record keeping or no records at all. They had no idea how old Farnsworth was and didn't come to pick him up until he reached out to them.
I've alerted the Sunset Squad robots.
And that was basically 20 years ago. The professor is somewhere in his 180s now, possibly older after the Fountain of Aging debacle.
With my last breath, I curse Zoidberg!
Thanks to Pazuzu, he comes out of that fountain, but he's now even older than he originally was at the start of the episode. Who knows how old he is now? My point is, the Sunset Squad certainly doesn't, and they might not know how old anyone is.
It is true old people are often concerned that there are children on their lawns.
Which could explain why Hermes' father seems to die of old age instead of being taken to the near Death Star. This inconsistency in the system might just be a product of people not interacting with the system properly. And no one exemplifies this better than the little boy asking Robot Santa for a coffin for his grandpa. Now, let's just put aside the fact that asking Robot Santa for a present when you're painfully aware of what he actually does is stupid on its face.
Stop acting so stupid!
I don't expect the child to take care of this situation, but his parents have let this untouched corpse of the kid's grandfather sit in a rocking chair in a robe for nearly a year. They have no real plan because, again, they're asking a robot mass murderer for a present to take care of it. And they clearly didn't attempt to render any medical aid because he choked on a chestnut. You don't even need future tech for that one. The Heimlich maneuver has been around since 1974. Based on everything we've discussed so far, it's likely that the days after Xmas are mostly spent cleaning up, repairing, and reviving those harmed by Robot Santa. But why is it so sloppily administered? It could, of course, just be a product of bureaucratic overload.
I'm still waiting on my birth certificate.
But I think these cracks are intentionally left open.
My new spleen came from a guy who liked the motorcycle.
See, for some reason they still have organ donors and transplants in this future, which suggests this robust medical technology is actually a zero-sum game. And this lines up with Farnsworth killing people to harvest their stem cells, and the fact that there is clearly still a black market for organs in the future.
Lie down on table. I take lungs now, gills come next week.
While an organ black market is messed up on its own, it's not the most fucked up part of this zero-sum medical system. Do you remember this guy?
Who are you, old man?
Name's Old Man Waterfall, but most folks just call me Old Man.
I'll never remember that.
He's seen a lot of combat.
Name a body part in a planet, and I've taken a bullet in it, on it.
Obviously that's an exaggeration, but he's clearly been through a lot of physical harm, and we can assume based on his stories that he's been successfully rebuilt and redeployed multiple times. Where did his replacement parts come from? Some of them, like his hand, are probably just prosthetics, but evidence suggests some of the organs probably came from somewhere, or more accurately, someone else.
You stole my kidney!
And it's not like Old Man was an officer or something, he's clearly on the front line, so why should we assume any soldier marching under Old Freebie is any different? In this future where bodies can be fully repaired, especially if the head is still intact, what's stopping the dupe from using that technology to keep their soldiers in fighting shape after heavy losses?
You see, killbots have a preset kill limit. Knowing their weakness, I sent wave after wave of my own men at them until they reached their limit and shut down.
Because boy, do they frequently have heavy losses.
How many men did we lose?
All of them.
Where do they get all these men they keep losing? They will occasionally have a draft when Earth itself is in danger of being destroyed by Omicronians or nudist-piloted Golden Death Stars, but their imperialistic military...
This is your home planet? We're the evil invading aliens?
Correct.
Typically aboard the Nimbus, is volunteer. It's unclear what the pay situation is beyond a 5% military discount at the 7 to the 11th, but I have to assume it's decent because there is a line to enlist behind Fry and Bender. Also because of this nightmare version of The Edge of Tomorrow I'm proposing. Obviously, though, it's a little different. It's not a time loop, it's just a death loop. The dupe loop I call it, and it's the reason Zap Brannigan is still in the position he's in. We have, of course, seen Zap stripped of his rank twice, but neither time has been for being a bad commander. He was temporarily relieved of command for his harassment of Kif, but that was a slap on the wrist at best. The only true consequence he's ever seen was when he was dishonorably discharged for blowing up the brand new Dupe headquarters.
Whoopsie daisy.
But he's never seen a consequence for regularly losing an entire Nimbus worth of soldiers, sometimes twice on the same mission. For example, while pursuing the Feministas, Zap, against the advisement of Kif, maintains his present course and speed, even though Kif tells him
the computer predicts a 100% chance we'll be sliced in half,
resulting in the loss of the entire crew. Later, Zap takes the ship in for repairs, picks the trail back up, and is in pursuit for the remainder of the movie, into the beginning of Rebirth, where he... I'm pretty sure this ship is crewed again by this point, despite the fact that Zap already lost an entire crew. The weapon systems on the Nimbus are operational and firing. There have to be additional people on board. I don't understand how this isn't grounds for another dishonorable discharge, or at the very least a demotion, but the next time we see Zap after this FUBAR operation is in a meeting with the President of Earth in a super secret underground bunker White House. He's the most trusted military officer, the guy willing to feed his soldiers into killbots. He's never punished for any of this. In fact, if anything, he's rewarded.
Kif, show them the medal I won.
Because after a successful Zap invasion, the Dupe can go in, recover all of the bodies of any fallen soldiers, and revive them through various means ranging from stem cell vats to replacement parts like we see with Old Man. It's probably not a quick process, so they likely have a complex system of units shuffling through service, recovery, repair, and redeployment. So Zap isn't going to have the same group of soldiers on every mission, but he will end up sending the same dudes to their deaths over and over.
Don't ask me, you're the one who's going to be dying.
Which is just another reason for everyone to hate him.
Right, men?
You suck!
Basically what I'm suggesting is the Dupe fight like the Zerg. Wave after wave of expendable, cheap, basically recyclable soldiers swarming towards the enemy, deployed without regard for their well-being. Sent, yes, to kill, but also mostly to die.
But when I'm in command, every mission's a suicide mission.
Now, that's one thing for a hive mind to do, I imagine. I don't know what it's like to be a hive mind, and by extension can't know if the Zerg overmind felt bad about sending Zerglings to their deaths. I mean, I never felt bad about it.
Oh, I just wish I understood why I should care.
But knowingly, repeatedly, and intentionally sending the same people to their deaths, even if it's just temporary, is going to take a toll on a commanding officer, right? Soldiers are still going to feel the pain of those brutal maimings, and some of them aren't going to be recovered. You'd have to be a pretty hard motherfucker to be willing to do that to people, but you'd have to be a psychopathic sadist to take pleasure in it.
A few of you will be forced through a fine mesh screen for your planet. They will be the luckiest of all.
Zap Brannigan loves sending soldiers to their deaths, which makes him the perfect commander of an army of recyclable Deathloop soldiers. And if this seems like an overall improvement to the way wars are currently being waged because we aren't really losing soldiers, one, that's some real tribal and imperialistic thinking. Reflect on that. 2, remember that this post-death situation is apparently a zero-sum game. This means the Dupe is subsidizing the sacrifice of their soldiers with the bodies of the citizenry of Earth. Like I said, these spare parts need to come from someone. This is, by my estimate, the key role of the suicide booth. Users of those booths would be stripped for parts after their euthanization. They probably use whatever's left over after that for Soleil and Cola. Who knows? I already made a video about soda. But based on the existence of organ black markets and everything else we talked about, it's unlikely these booths are providing enough resources on their own. They need to fill both the needs of the public and the Dupe. This is why the cracks in the system are left open, to prey upon the people who fall through the gaps so they can be stripped for parts. No wonder nobody wants to pay their fucking taxes. Unfortunately, right now I don't have any definitive proof, just a lot of signs that feel like they're starting to point at a really obvious conclusion. I don't know if the dupe is dumb enough to keep records of this fucked up power structure, but it is a complex enough network that some sort of paper trail probably exists whether they like it or not. Or maybe they just don't even care if anyone finds out because they're confident they won't suffer consequences because they're in power. Man, if we lived in a world like that, I'd hope we'd all have the courage to drag those responsible out into the street and make an example of them.
Is this the boring, peaceful kind to take into the streets?
No, the kind with looting and maybe starting a few fires.
What I'm saying is, release the fucking files. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.
That concludes another Silly Willy video, Will.